Good morning. Welcome to Scholar IAS Current Affairs classes. Today, we are going to look into some important issues of current affairs of January 15th. So, the first issue is with respect to food security. This particular issue deals with how to evolve a smart food security program to attain the food security objectives for India. So, this issue is very important with respect to mains GS3 economic development portion. So coming to the issue, NFHS, that is National Family Health Survey 5, shows that India had not improved its nutritional status since the NFHS 2015 and 16. Out of 22 states, 18 states show poor or worsening state with respect to stunting for the children under 5 years. Also, that this particular pandemic had really worsened the state of nutrition levels in India, and it had created a big crisis with respect to the nutritional status of poor and marginalized sections. So, with respect to child stunting, when we look at the facts, India accounts for one third of the total population of stunted children under the age of 5 in the world. Also, that child stunting is an important indicator of long term malnourishment. So this is also associated with some of the issues like poor school achievement, diminished income earning capacity. The logic is very simple. When the child is not taking proper nutrition, it will not grow in terms of height with respect to age, and as a result, its cognitive capability will be restricted, resulting in poor school achievement as well as diminished income earning capacity. So what are the India's efforts to achieve food security as well as nutritional security? First is that India had enacted the National Food Security Act. This particular act provides the food security for 75% of the rural population and 50% of the urban population. This totals to 67.5% of the population are covered under this act. Second important effort is that targeted public distribution system, which ensures subsidized food grains for at least 76 crore ration card holders. Besides these two important schemes, midday meal schemes, integrated child development services are also the efforts of India to address the food security issue. On top of that, when we look into the decade that is between 2009 to 2019, procurement of rice and wheat had increased by 35%. Annual offtake of food grains has also increased 30% in this particular decade. So despite all these efforts and the evidences of procurement and annual offtake, India continues to perform very poorly in terms of nutritional outcomes. So this is a bizarre state, and we have to look into the reasons why India is not performing well with respect to nutritional outcomes. So what are the reasons behind the poor performance in terms of nutritional outcomes? First is the lack of dietary diversity. The current food basket, rice, wheat and coarse grains which are promised under this act is not substantially improving the dietary diversity of the beneficiaries. Second, the evaluation of NFSA should be improved. Basically, right now the NFSA continues to be output oriented, like how much ration card holders are there, how much food grains are distributed. All these administrative aspects are focused rather than the outcomes like what is the level of nutrients in a particular population and how many people are affected by anemia. So if there is anemia, it says that there is less content of iron in their blood. So basically the evaluation process should be outcome based rather than the output based. So third important issue is with respect to dysfunctional state food commissions. Under the Act, the state food commissions have been given the responsibility to provide for oversight of the National Food Security Act. They are entasked to provide specific recommendations on state specific challenges and how mitigation measures to address these challenges. But the pathetic situation is that less than half of the states have functional SFCs, and even those which are functional in nature, they also have reported issues like financial constraints, infrastructural challenges, staff shortage, and lack of autonomy. Neglect of technology is the one another reason that causes the poor nutritional outcomes. This is because the provision to experiment with tools like direct benefit transfer or food coupons have not been put in place. Second, DBT modality under NFSA has only been implemented in UTs of Chandigarh, Puducherry, Dadra Nagar Haveli. So DBT or food coupons have to be implemented so that there is an accountability with respect to the benefits of the NFSA being transferred to the people. What are the measures needed? DBT experiment for NFSA first have to be carefully piloted, then it had to be extended across willing states. So once the DBT experiment is successful and the people get cash in their hand, they should be ensured that this particular cash is only spent for nutritional purposes, for which behavioral change is very important. Government should go for mass awareness and education campaign so that this particular money is spent on nutrition only. And there is another way of doing this. Strong conditionalities like linking cash transfer to the school attendance immunization can also improve the nutritional outcomes. For example, when the conditionality of school attendance is required or is attached, once the child goes to the school, he will access midday meal scheme. As a result, the nutritional status will improve. At the same time, when the child goes for this immunization drive or the immunization camp, what happens is that the disease that the child will contract will reduce. As a result, the absorption capacity of the nutrients will increase in the child's health system. As a result, this will improve the nutritional capacity. So these stronger conditionalities have to be linked with the cash transfer. Other than that, a dynamic nutrition line is essential, which is similar to the poverty line, should be drawn so that we will know what kind of population requires how much nutrition, because India is not consisting of same type of people. We have a varied geographical zones with the different income groups with the different requirements. So dynamic nutrition line is very important, and as per the dynamic nutrition line, the policies have to be set. So we had already seen that non-diversified food basket is a big problem with respect to nutritional outcomes. So we have to diversify the food basket so that we cater to the nutritional requirements of diverse population in India. Second, we have studies in Mexico and Brazil with respect to conditional cash transfer. So we have to inculcate the best practices so that we perfect the conditional cash transfer system in India. Also, concerted efforts and investments will be required to provide for the nutritional outcomes, for the better nutritional outcomes. Also, that schemes which are focusing on nutrition should be having a convergence. On top of this, we also should focus on outcome-based performance management of NFSA. So we had seen that output-based or input-based evaluation is not providing proper accountability. So it is high time that we move to the outcome-based performance management of NFSA. So what is the way forward? See, the India's nutritional problem requires a system-based approach, which is based on greater convergence of stakeholders, decentralization in true spirit, which means diversifying the food table, inducting dynamic nutrition line. All these things will come under the decentralization, and better data systems to drive quicker learning and course correction. So all these we have already seen, which is just this particular aspect is a consolidation of all that we have seen before. Next issue is a very interesting issue. This particular article, which had recently come in the news item, is written by Mr. Amitabh Kant, and this particular article links agricultural technology with the agricultural growth. So this particular topic is relevant in mains GS3 technology part. So going to the issue, how is a high growth sector predicted? Basically, in a country, the entrepreneurial mindset and the innovative ideas present in a particular sector will tell if this particular sector is going to have a very high growth in the next decade. For example, in 1990s and 2000s, there have been a proliferation of ideas, and the entrepreneurial mindset with respect to IT and telecommunications. The result is that India had become the service superpower in the world. We had already seen that India's IT and telecommunication sector is doing very well. This is because in 90s and 2000s we had a proper entrepreneurial mindset as well as proliferation of innovative ideas. So right now, this particular entrepreneurial mindset and the innovative ideas is aggrandizing within the agriculture sector, which means that in the next decade or so, we would expect a high growth in this sector. This is what this particular article is arguing. Why is agriculture predicted as a high growth sector in the future? Basically, there have been an escalation of private sector led entrepreneurship. More private sector is interested in taking agriculture led organizations. So this is a very good thing. Second, these particular private sector are using transformative technologies like Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, all these things they are employing. Third, government is also instituting favorable policies. Recently enacted agricultural laws is focused on commercialization of agriculture to improve the business climate for agri-tech companies and agri-entrepreneurship so that farmers will get better income and at the same time food wastage will be reduced. Also that we can improve the agricultural productivity. What is the role of entrepreneurship? So basically, entrepreneurship in agriculture are providing for acceleration of production, ensuring efficient input use, reducing post-harvest losses, intensifying value addition, risk mitigation, and other ancillary activities being optimized. These are the areas where they are focusing because these are the areas that is a big problem in agriculture. So entrepreneurship is all about addressing some problem with innovative solutions. So basically these are the bottlenecks that we had studied or we had observed in Indian agriculture, and these are the areas exactly where the entrepreneurs are focusing. Second, these type of entrepreneurship effort will result in income generation and wealth creation for farmers, which also results in Government of India's aim of doubling the farmers' income. So, where do these startups stand in transforming the agriculture? India Tech Startup Ecosystem, released by NASCOM and Zinnov, states that these agri startups are using artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, satellite communication to address the bottlenecks in agricultural sector so that the agriculture sector will leapfrog to the different level. So over 735 agri-tech startups in India, according to Traction, has facilitated the unprecedented technological catalysis which had leapfrogged the Indian agriculture into the future of efficiency and equity. So how these startups are doing, how they are transforming the agricultural landscape. There are different ways these startups are overcoming the bottlenecks that we are finding in agriculture. First is that information dissemination. So these startups are delivering farm specific, crop specific, and crop stage specific information so that it reduces the cost of operation and increases yield. Second area where they are providing good service is market access. So they are using algorithms and big data to facilitate information with respect to access to market. This particular aspect has a great potential in reducing the food wastage and timely realization of cost. Third, aggregation. We had already seen that Ola and Uber are aggregators of transport sector. So likewise in agricultural sector, the aggregators are trying to link the supply and demand section through producing, production, trading, storing, transportation, processing. In all these segments, the startups are trying to aggregate the production and supply segments of the agriculture. Fourth sector is a quality check sector where some startups are using AI, data analytics, Internet of Things, spectral analysis for analyzing the food's quality so that this particular quality food will be traded or exported or stored properly. Fifth area where the startups are looking into is the estimation of crop damage so that these particular the damaged crops can be used to claim the insurance as well as also it also helps in prevention of crop damage. So the satellite imagery which are used to know the situation on ground will build a proper historic data. As a result, they will use database management system to predict the weather pattern as well as prevent the disasters that is about to happen with respect to the dwindling rainfall and the variations in monsoon. All these things they could prevent. So the third topic is with respect to worker loss and automation. This particular topic is very relevant with respect to social justice because we are going to look into aspects where social security legislation or the pro-worker legislation which has been instituted for the benefit of the labor is working against the labor. This is a bizarre topic and it brings out a unique social transformation that had inducted by the laws in the society. So please give a keen attention to this particular topic. A study of apparel makers shows firms in states with pro-worker labor laws prefer using machinery and automation. So this is where the contradiction lies. Pro-worker legislations are encouraging the owners to use more machinery because it is becoming more costlier for the owners for the compliance of these laws. Second, critics have accused that the recently passed Industrial Relations Code 2020 is favoring employers, and the code makes it for the small firms to lay off workers because the small firms are not really scrutinized by the Industrial Relations Code. So the issue is that pro-worker laws have the effect of increasing labor cost. Because of the increase in labor cost, companies and industries are shifting their focus towards buying more machines rather than hiring employees. So this particular transition is very smooth with respect to the export-oriented government units because they somehow have to have these advanced machineries, and hence this particular shift is really causing problem for the labor. We had already seen that how pro-worker legislation is antithetic to the exports right now in the country. So to state the facts, companies in the states with pro-worker policies export 68% less than those states with pro-employer policies. This is basically because of the two reasons. One is that pro-worker laws may come in the way of the firms fulfilling large orders, which means that these export organizations, these export units, which have to comply to the global requirements of timelines and targets, and these pro-worker legislations delay their fulfillment of the targets and batches. As a result, this hinders their business sense. On the other hand, pro-worker states tend to have fewer firms in the formal sector and so fewer permission to export. Having seen the dark side of the pro-worker legislation, the next question that arises in the mind is whether pro-employer legislation will both boost the export sector as well as the safety net for the workers. But this question should be answered in a proper way. Pro-employer legislation, yes, it will improve export, but with respect to protection of workers, we cannot guarantee. So, which means that only when the safety nets of the workers are made stronger, pro-employer laws will provide for the welfare of the workers. This is the conclusion that the article speaks about. So that's all we have for you today. For more videos, please log on to scholar.com. Thank you.